Is liberty dying where you live? Escape to Keene at freekeene.com.
So we have the parties here in Ann Talon versus Jen Schmidt. This is a final hearing, Stalking final order of protection request. The procedure will be you have the obligation to prove the case. You've got to prove it by the whole preponderance of the evidence. That means you have to show me that it's more likely than not that the evidence supports your claim. And your claim has to be shown that on more than one occasion it acted in such a way as to place a reasonable person in fear for their personal safety, or the personal safety of the immediate family member. You have to show on at least 2 occasions. You do that by coming up here, bring anything you need to refer to, and you can give your testimony. Yeah.
So before you get her up there, just want to have a procedural issue to do the rest before she goes up. So I'll wait till you're done. I'm sorry, just want to send her up there yet.
Okay. All right. And then we ask questions. Do you have any witnesses who will be testifying? Okay. Do you have any witnesses?
I do. They're here. Do you want them out?
No, unless you agree to have them out.
I don't care.
Then it'll be the defendant's opportunity, and then when each of the defendant's witnesses, including the defendant, testifies, you can ask them questions when they're done. Okay, and then when I've heard all the evidence, I'll just say you take these matters under advisement. And I think we have we'll send the decision to Attorney Gavin on behalf of the defendant. We'll send it to you at your home address, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Any questions about the procedure?
I don't think so. I may need some guidance. I don't think so. I may need some guidance along the way, but
I may not be able to offer you guidance.
No, well, at least steer me in the right direction.
Well, I may not be able to do that either, but
okay.
We'll see how things go.
Sorry, George, I just have one procedural question. In December, Ms. Talon filed a motion for amendment to petition.
Yes.
She attached her several letters. I'd like the letters to be removed and given to her to put in as exhibits if she wants to do it that way, but not as evidence without, if they're letters that are used for the truth, and I'd like her to have those removed. She has an amendment to the petition, which is there's no objection to, but then she has several letters and other things that I would just like to have removed procedurally.
Removed?
Well, like removed as exhibits and let her.
Well, I don't have anything as exhibits yet.
Well, they're in the court file.
But nothing's been offered as an exhibit. You mean you want the file to be purged of those things?
Well, I'd like the file to be, that those can be removed and given to her, and if she puts them in today, again, that's fine. I'm not objecting to her going forward and being able to enter them, but they're in the file.
Often people do attach things that aren't, and they consider them evidence, but they have to come in the proper way. But to the extent that these things constitute supplements of original allegations, then obviously they're part of the record.
Right. Yeah. She has written in what she wants to do, but then she says this is the things, and then here's an attached letter. It's only the letter.
Why don't we leave things where they are? Remind me at the end of the hearing what stays and what doesn't, rather than giving back and find they could play ping pong.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. As long as the issues are raised.
Okay.
Well, to be honest, I don't have the exact files that I had given. I had my letters that I had sent in the 16th.
Well, the evidence, you can't assume, by the way, that even though you've been here for prior hearings, anything you said, anything that was offered in testimony, this is a clean slate today. You have to start from the beginning. Don't assume I know anything. Don't leave anything to my imagination. We have the burden of proof, and you need to get everything out on the table here today. Okay?
Okay.
All right, you ready to come up and testify?
Yes, I'm
okay. Make sure you bring what you need.
Okay. Well, can I stand here? Or do I sit there?
Unfortunately, it gets kind of awkward when we start to do cross-examination and people remain at their tables.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
raise your right hand. To swear or affirm anything you say here will be the truth.
Yes, I do.
Have a seat, please. And you are Ann Talon.
I am Ann Talon. I live
Go ahead.
at 98 River Street. And on October 14th, I had police officer Seymour come to my home and asked to interview me and my grandson, G. Trombley. And it was around problems that were, Mrs. Jennifer Schmidt had said, surrounded Gavin and Gavin bothering her child at school. And I had not heard anything from the principal of school regarding this. I gave whatever information I had to Officer Seymour. Officer Seymour spoke to G. Trombley about the allegations that were made, and I think Officer Seymour was satisfied with mine and Gavin's response. That evening I notified the school that I had a police officer come to my home, that my grandson and my ward, G. Trombley, was very upset by the presence of the police officer.
Okay, we're talking about two different people here?
No, G. Trombley.
And the grandson of the same person?
Yes, I'm his legal guardian
Okay.
for 9
Okay.
years. So I wanted to let the principal know what was happening because I was taken by surprise by the situation. I asked her, was there anything that had occurred that I should know about, and I was told no, there was not. However, on the 15th of October, I learned when Gavin
I'm going to object to any of her testimony that she testified. I think she learned, actually, to be her first-hand account. She did have, she had a lot of things in this, her stalking petition that she didn't actually observe. So I asked that anything that she didn't observe this witness for not be tested.
So I will go back and repeat what I said.
Well, but she made a legal objection. Do you have any response to the legal objection about testifying to what other people said or told you?
Well, because I spoke to Mrs. Hartshorn and I have an email and written information about that, and confirmation from her that nothing had occurred in school to have precipitated.
Your Honor, I don't object to what she said so far. I'm talking about going forward.
I understand.
That the police...
Hang on, please. Just so I can be clear on the record, 173B3 Roman 8 says, in any proceeding under this chapter, the court shall not be bound by the technical rules of evidence and may admit evidence which it considers relevant and material. So hearsay is not technically applicable here, so you can't testify to these things. I'll warn you, though, that testimony about what other people said, and if those people aren't here to testify, it's a little less reliable because it's not subject to cross-examination than direct testimony. So you can testify about these conversations to some extent. I won't let you go too far into them, so we'll just continue with your testimony.
Okay. So on the 15th of October, Jennifer Schmidt was on the playground, sitting on the bench when...
Yeah, but based on that last ruling, you need to know whether you were witnessing things or not.
I was not witnessing that. My Gavin, Trombley, and other adults on the playground witnessed Mrs. Schmidt on the bench. And Gavin was upset by her presence.
I hate to keep interrupting, but how did you, the information you testified, how did you get it? If you weren't there, how did you know about it?
How did I know about it? I knew about it because Mrs. Hartshorn told the principal told me. And I knew about it because Gavin Trombley too. And I need to take what Gavin Trombley and what Mrs. Hartshorn says as fact. And I understood that there were other children around who witnessed Gavin upset by the fact that somebody was watching him on the playground, and the person who had the night before called the police on him. And so he was very dysregulated and almost off the playground because of it. And my understanding is, in speaking with the people of the Department of Education, that unless a person is
If she's making an objection, you need to stop. We'll handle the objection.
Yeah, so now she's testifying about the Department of Education. I mean, this is.
That's going too far. I'm not going to allow that kind of question.
All right. That kind of testimony, then, it would be that the federal law states that people need to be fingerprinted in order to go on the playground.
She can make that testimony. That's not helping me. You have to focus on what it was this person did, okay, that supports a stalking report. Okay.
What she did
So
was...
whether she'd have to be fingerprinted or not, the question is, if she wasn't fingerprinted and didn't do anything wrong, her being fingerprinted has nothing to do with this case.
Judge Burke and others. There were several incidents where Mrs. Schmidt continued to come to the school and make her presence near Gavin in order to intimidate him, according to what Gavin Trombley said to me. There were specific incidents in the school and outside of the school. And one of the incidents which occurred happened in the Hannaford supermarket, where Gavin was in the supermarket. He came outside and told me that Mrs. Schmidt was threatening to him.
How old is Gavin?
Gavin is 10. I went back into the supermarket and went to find Mrs. Schmidt. And as I approached Mrs. Schmidt, I said, "Excuse me." And when I said that, she became very angry and she challenged me to a conversation, and which I declined. I did not speak to her, other than when I initially said, "Excuse me." And I left the supermarket, and at that point, I called Officer Zamor to report that to him. I also contacted the school about the situation because I was concerned. And subsequent to that, there was still ongoing
What
situations.
did Gavin say specifically happened in Hannah?
Gavin said that Mrs. Schmidt approached him in the aisle. It looked like she had her hands outstretched and told him to fuck off. He came running out into the parking lot, afraid, and I went back into the store to see what had happened, if I could see Mrs. Schmidt, to confront her, and then she told me what I just said to you.
Go ahead.
As we went through this October period of time, Mrs. Schmidt continued to come to the school despite my concerns and complaints to the Fuller principal and to Dan White, the assistant superintendent. And my concerns are founded on the fact that Gavin Trombley is a child that does have some emotional concerns. And Judge, I'd like to give you a copy of this.
I don't know what it is.
Should I have copies for everybody?
Well, you need to let her know what it is first. She may have an objection to it.
Okay. This is a
Why don't
copy.
you just give her a copy?
Okay, I need to have this sealed. Is that possible?
I don't even know what it is, you know.
She's got to see what it is.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the witness isn't here. I know you.
I'll just let me see what it is, and I'll make a ruling on it. and see. I'll accept this. This still relies on evidence of whether or not the stalking occurred. So
Well, the evidence of the stalking that has occurred comes to me from my grandson, Gavin Trumbull, through the people at the school who I've been in contact with, either verbally or written.
I understand that. And what I'm saying is that what you just showed me is worthy of addressing if I find the facts support your claim. You've already testified to the facts supporting why you think she's stalking. Yeah. If I don't find that, then that letter doesn't have any bearing on the evidence.
So there were several circumstances that occurred on the school grounds and off of the school grounds. The second one that happened was I was inside my home. Gavin had reported that Mrs. Schmidt, who lives 2.3 of a mile down from my home, had come up to the cul-de-sac and had given Gavin the finger. That was another incident that I did not see. The third incident off of the school grounds, wherefore I had walked Gavin, I was walking Gavin back home from the school grounds. I was proceeding up North Street with Gavin, and he had forgotten a Lego piece. I started to go down the hill. I saw Mrs. Schmidt's car and her daughter, and Mrs. Schmidt in her car with her daughter, proceeding towards the intersection. I waited to make sure that she turned. I didn't know which direction she was going in. I didn't want her passing Gavin because I knew that he was extremely frightened of her. And so I proceeded to go back to the school, which was probably a half a mile down the street while he waited for me. And then as I came back, after retrieving this Lego piece, I looked up, I saw two cars crossing, and I really didn't think anything of it. I saw two silver cars crossing in the intersection at North Lane and the cross street. I'm not sure what the name of the street is, Armory or something. And looked down, didn't register, but then all of a sudden I saw Gavin bolting up the hill. And so I immediately, based on his body language, I was concerned about something. So I started to run. I ran down the street, which is, like I said, a half a mile. When I got to him, he was standing by this Lego thing that he had.
Where were you?
I ran from the back of Fuller School, which is, I think is Armory Street, and then to North Lane, where he was up North Lane because he had run up the street. And he said that, he told me that Mrs. Schmidt had come by in her car, that she had stopped where he was at the stop sign, and had showed what appeared to him to be a knife. He said this appeared to be a knife. It was a shiny object. He did not state it was. He said it looked like that, and it scared me. So those are the three situations that had occurred off the school grounds that I had some sort of interaction with the situation. One, i.e. in Hannaford, observing Mrs. Schmidt, very angry, red-faced, demeanor and words to me. And then the other with the cars, which, yes, true, may or may not have silver cars. I know Mrs. Schmidt was driving a silver Volvo. And then I have Gavin's word telling me that she had said this to him outside of her car. In addition to that, I have numerous situations where I had come past the school grounds and Mrs. Schmidt had her car parked in the playground, observing the children on the playground. In one situation where Gavin was in proximity to the parking lot where she was visible, and this was after numerous attempts with the school and trying to keep Mrs. Schmidt away from Gavin because of his significant emotional disability that he has and him trying to function in school. So the school environment became an unsafe place for him, as well as outside of the school environment, where he was afraid that someone was going to come to the house, Mrs. Schmidt was going to come to the house. He's having nightmares. These are all based on this letter here from Dr. Pasquale that I showed you. And at no point, even though I had tried to negotiate with the school and try to keep this situation under wherefore Mrs. Schmidt was constantly making her presence in the school near Gavin, there was no consideration of that. The serious effect.
Anything else?
I don't have to.
Okay. Bring it down.
So you never once observed any threat by Ms. Schmidt to your grandson?
I did not.
You never, okay. And in fact, your grandson has was demonstrated by your letter, has a number of behavioral issues at this point.
They're not behavioral issues.
Okay. Well, how would you characterize it?
How would I characterize it? It's called trauma.
Okay. So,
And so when there's a situation, and in Gavin's case, it has to do with trauma and being threatened and triggered. That's a trigger.
and in fact, your grandson has a history of behavioral issues at the school. Is that not correct? At the
Behavioral
school?
issues at the school? No, actually, he's doing very well.
Well, okay. Well, then tell me about did Gavin hurt 11 students on January 29, 2014?
He did not. He had an outburst at school.
Excuse me, what was the date again?
January 29, 2014. Yeah, sorry, it was 2014.
Gavin has an IEP.
That's not the answer. The question was,
It's
is it true that your
Oh, hang on a
child?
second.
It's actually
She'll finish your questions. You can answer the questions first, and if it needs an explanation, you can do that. You have to try to answer the question first.
And the question was, isn't it true that your grandson hurt 11 children on January 29, 2013?
I don't know the number of children, but no, the children that he had a meltdown on the playground, and when that occurred, there was no child that was injured in that situation.
Okay.
Did you decide this was 13 or 14?
2014. So let me just, your child though struck or hit several children on January 29, 2013. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay. And he actually did it in at least two locations at the school.
Excuse me?
He struck children at 2 locations at the school.
No.
Okay, so did he strike people outside at the slide? Thank you.
At the slide, no, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Did he strike children inside?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So where was he when he struck?
He was outside. We went outside to play on the playground after some children had some words to say to him, and he was very upset. And he retreated to up top on the slide.
Okay. Was that incident observed? Are you aware that that incident was observed by other children?
The incident was observed by other children as well as the adults, and I do have another.
I don't know. Isn't it true though that, or you're not aware of whether or not my client's daughter observed that?
I'm assuming that the 4th grade and whoever else was, or the 3rd grade and whoever else was out there saw that.
And in fact, you're not aware of any medical or other concerns for my client's child, right?
I think that's their personal business as Gavin's, my child's business. Those are personal matters.
Are you aware that there was incidents between Gavin and my client's child at school to the point where they were separated in classrooms?
I know that they went to separate classrooms because each of them had problems with each other.
Are you aware that your child threatened to kill another child at school?
Where did you get that information
I
from?
have a witness for that.
The question is, are you aware? Yes or no?
I am aware.
Okay. So are you aware that your child ran away, sorry, and I'm trying not to use names.
May I just go back to
Well, hold on a
your
second.
first question?
Wait.
Your first
Again, you're talking, both of you talking over each other.
And I'm just trying to say,
I'm just trying to tell you to stop.
yeah.
I would need,
Both of you stop. If you want to explain the prior answer about the question of were you aware of whether Gavin threatened to kill another student at some point, you said yes. Do you want to expand on that answer?
Yes, I did.
Then go ahead.
Yes, I did. That was based on other children's comments, not on his.
What does that mean?
That means that Gavin said he did not say that. That Gavin said that he was talking about what Mrs. Schmidt had done 2 days prior to that, on that Monday, where she had threatened him from her home.
Are you aware that the school called the police to report the fact that your grandson threatens to kill children? The other at the school?
No, I'm not.
Your Honor, I have somebody here to validate this, but may I at this point report to police report to the police? I ask you to read the third page. Where it has like the description.
Do you have a question?
Well, I wanted to read it. I say, so now you're aware that you're...
No, I was not aware of this, and I did actually ask specifically if there was a problem here, and I was told that there wasn't.
Somebody tells me what this is, and
Right,
I don't know what you're talking about.
So what, so you are now aware that on December 4th, 2014, that, sorry, what I wanted to clarify earlier is I'm going to say your child, I mean your ward, is that okay? May I refer to him as your child? Okay. So that your child threatened to kill another child to the point where they called the police?
Reportedly.
Okay.
Reportedly. Again, there were 2 children that were interviewed, and it's reported. Gavin denied it, and Gavin said that he was repeating the story to somebody because they had asked what was going on with you and Mrs. Schmidt. Because the children at the school were aware that there were problems.
Do you see on there that it talks about the fact that he is physically violent, and this is not the first time threats of harm or use of weaponry has been used by him, referenced by him?
No, that's not true.
I'm sorry, did you see that it says that?
I see that that's what people have said about him.
In fact, there have been issues where you've been threatened by violence by your child. Isn't that true?
That's not true.
Isn't it true that you called the police on August 26, 2000? I'm sorry, that you called them on the police on June 6, 2013 with an out-of-control child. You called again on February 6, 2014 with an out-of-control child. You called again on August.
Which one do you want to answer?
Sorry, I'm going to ask if these are all true.
Why don't you give her a chance to answer?
Sure. All right. So is it true that you called on June 6, 2013 with an out-of-control child?
When I have an out-of-control child, that means he's destroying the household. He is not harming. I don't know, I don't understand how you are able to access a minor's records and how that can be admissible.
The question is whether or not you called the police for this.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you called again on February 6, 2014.
Yes, I did.
And you called again on August 26, 2014.
Yes, I do.
And
So whether he's an out-of-control child or not, how does that bear on whether your client has stalked him in the manner that's been alleged?
well, that's what I'm getting, or trying to get to that. Let's have one more question about that.
No more questions about that unless you can tell me what
Sure.
it has.
Well, the issue is that my client's child has been threatened by Ms. Talon's child.
Well,
And-
you haven't said that.
No, I know, I haven't gotten there yet, Your Honor. I'm just laying the foundation, getting police reports in. And then, or I will get them in. And what I'm trying to get to is the point that my client, the whole defense of this stalking order is that my client had a legitimate purpose for being at the school all this time. Her daughter has an IEP that has an anxiety component that has a requirement for her to be doing things outside during the recess. And I have the principal here to say that my client had a legitimate purpose for being there. My client denies.
Well, when it's her turn, she can deny it.
Sure.
But I don't need to hear anymore.
Okay. Did you see Mrs. Schmidt outside of your residence on November 28, 2014?
No, I did not.
When you went out,
Again, please, what's the date?
November 28, 2014?
Outside of her residence?
Outside her residence. When he reported to you outside?
Did I go outside?
Yeah.
I was heading outside.
She wasn't anywhere near there?
No, I did not see her.
Okay. So, and on December 1st, you didn't see a car, you saw Gavin, you didn't see the car stop to talk to him.
No, I did not.
So, you just have Gavin's word against. And you were not at school on November 25th, is that correct? 2015?
I was at the school on the 25th when Mrs. Schmidt was parked in the parking lot.
Nope. That's not it. Did you specifically reference November 25th in your petition?
Oh, in the assembly? I was not there.
Okay. So you have no idea where Mrs. Schmidt was sitting?
I do know that Gavin told me that she sat down near him and that Mrs. Cloutier, his teacher, noticed that he was very upset by the fact that Mrs. Schmidt had come to the assembly and was sitting in close proximity to him, and he was asked to leave the assembly.
So Gavin says that she came and sat next to him, or near him?
She was near him in the assembly.
And,
Not directly next to him, but near enough so he could see her.
okay,
And this is after the situations that had been building over the course of almost 2 months. Yes.
Excuse me, do you know who was there first? Who was in the assembly hall first?
I don't know because they come in as a group of students.
So it's possible Ms. Schmidt.
He would have,
It's possible Ms. Schmidt was already in her seat when the class came in.
I'm assuming it is possible, yes, Judge. I know.
I just want to be sure.
did you call the police when any of these incidents occurred?
I did after the incident at Hannaford. I spoke to the police officer, and he said that I should call him if it happens again, and that I did speak to them over the weekend after the Thanksgiving incident. I actually called them after each incident, and the last incident, Officer Zamor had said, you really need to call into the desk immediately, not call me directly. And that's what I was trying to do, was engage with him, which I thought was a proper protocol.
So was there ever any criminal complaints or anything raised about Ms. Schmidt's behavior that you're aware of?
Criminal complaints?
Yeah.
I asked if any charges were filed.
Any charges?
Did I file any charges?
Are you aware of any charges based on your complaints?
No.
for this one.
Okay, based on the questions you were asked, is there anything you wanted to add or clarify?
Yes, I did, because I had a letter. I know that Attorney Gavin had mentioned that Gavin had a breakdown at school, and I know that many of the interactions that he's had with students, some of the students, this is not an ongoing thing. I think 95% of the time Gavin is very well in school. That I've learned over the course of the year that many of the children have been bullying him as well verbally. But in reference to the January 29th incident that Attorney Gavin was referring to, and I'd like to show you this. Do I have to show her this first before I show you?
While she's looking at that, January 29th, which incident was that?
Well, January 29th,
2014.
2014.
Well, that was the incident at school.
That was at school,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
Well, as I indicated, you know, whether Gavin's has no problems or some issues here, the question goes to her conduct, and its conduct and its impact here. So we don't really need to go through that any deeper than we really have.
There's a letter from her grandson on here. No objection to
Okay, sure.
I have concerns because if I'm hearing this correctly, there's information that's come through from the course of a year or more, and it brings us to where I have a situation at school where my grandson and Ward is trying to be schooled, and
I guess what I'm saying is that it's the section from the statute that I read to you, that evidence that's relevant, if I find it relevant, it will help me along. How is what you're about to want to show me going to help me decide whether she, on the occasions you referenced, committed acts that constitute stalking?
well, you know what, it probably doesn't, because it seems as if a child's behavior is being persecuted because it's misunderstood. When there are two things going on here. There are many things going on here between kids. And the idea is that it's been known that Gavin has been feeling threatened and unsafe in the school environment and at home because of Mrs. Schmidt's actions in school, outside of school, and in a place where he is.
I understand, but the letter you're talking goes back to something over a year ago. How is that going to help me decide this case?
So I'm not going to show you.
Anything else? All right, let's step down.
Thank you.
Who do you want to call first? Yes, she says she's done.
Okay, can I make a motion to dismiss her?
Let her have a seat. Okay, go ahead.
Your Honor, I would at this point move to dismiss the case. The information provided by Ms. Talon was the preponderance of the evidence that my client has done a course of conduct to put her work into fear for personal safety. There's no instance that she ever witnessed. There has been legitimate reason for my client to be at the school because not specific my client has a child who's at the school.
Now you tested this in part of her case.
Well, I'm saying that my client has a good break. So my client had a reason to be
You
there.
can't testify about whether she had a legitimate right or not. You didn't testify.
Okay, and the information that she provided is not enough. There's not any actual testimony provided by anyone who saw anything that would lead to a stalking petition.
All right, Attorney Gavin has moved to dismiss the case, saying the evidence at this stage isn't sufficient. I will view the evidence in the light most favorable to you. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, other than I feel like in Mrs. Schmidt's efforts to maintain some sort of safety net around her child, she has damaged
my child's emotional stability at school.
We're talking about the motion here, okay? Based on the status of the evidence now, the denied motion to dismiss at this stage of the proceedings.
That's fine, I'm going to call Officer Zane.
Please raise your right hand and swear to affirm everything you say is the truth.
I do.
Can I see you and give us your name, please?
My name is Colin Zamore. My last name is spelled Z-A-M-O-R-E.
Where are you employed?
As a police officer for the city of Keene.
Have you had reason to be contacted by either Mrs. Schmidt or Mrs. Talon regarding their prospective child or ward?
Yes, I have.
And on the instance that you were called, who called you?
Well, there's been, I believe it's been both in person and over the phone.
Were reports, did Mrs. Talon report concerns of Mrs. Schmidt's behaviors?
Yes.
And were any of the behaviors rise to either the criminal stalking or criminal threatening or anything at that level?
No.
Were there any concerns raised by Ms. Talon that resulted in an investigation by the Keene Police into my client's behavior?
By investigation, if you refer to proceeding forward, past only talking to Ms. Talon, then yes, I believe there's occasion that I would talk to Ms. Schmidt and after having heard whatever the allegations or statements were from Ms. Talon. So if that's what you refer to as part of the investigation, then yes. In the times that I would speak to Ms. Talon or Ms. Schmidt, it didn't rise to anything more than just that, which would basically be a follow-up with the other party afterwards.
Are you aware of any criminal complaints filed against my client in regards to any of these issues?
I am not.
I've asked you to bring with you a number of police reports. Do you have those with you today?
I do.
Okay. Just so I don't want to keep it there.
Unless these deal directly with the allegations supporting the stalking incidents, I'm not really interested.
No, I know, but some of them are, so they're
Well, some of them mean that, and the ones that aren't, I'm not interested.
That's right. No, I don't. Pulling them up. I'm just trying to get them. I want to give her a copy of
Okay.
everything. For you. So, the floor. Yeah. This is all that is done. So I asked, do you have one for, I'll give you a date for the date reported, is that the best way to get to, or is it?
That's either that or the case number, either way is fine.
Okay, call number or incident number, sorry. I wanna make sure you-
The incident number.
Okay, so 142445OF.
Yes.
And also like you to look at the one for 1228, which is 142658OF.
Yep.
That's the one we were calling. Okay, so those two actually in particular. On the incident on 10/14, have you reviewed this report?
Yes.
Would it, may I, is it, can I go by, can I just kind of quick summarize and just make sure that he agrees that the report's okay? Was it that you were called, Mrs. Schmidt called you because a minor was going by her residence and yelling out?
I believe this is the report where she and her daughter came to the station.
Okay.
And we reviewed a number of things at that location.
Okay.
To include something similar to what you just mentioned.
Okay. And so she reported that a minor child, I'm trying not to say it, was yelling out to her child, harassing her child.
That at least on one past occasion, the child had ridden his bicycle by their residence, and I believe that she stated that she was either inside or in the backyard at the time, and not quite heard exactly what it was that was said by the child on the bicycle, and consequently asked that her daughter not play in the front yard or something along those lines anymore.
And then did you go and talk to Ms. Talon that day about that incident?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to admit this record. This is what my client's going to testify to. I mean, I can do it later as long as you let it in later.
I mean, you're testifying about the facts, we need the reports and evidence. Is there anything else in there that you wouldn't want me to read?
No, that's why I was speaking. I mean, I can get it in later, my client's going to testify about it. So, I'd like to have that.
So do you have any objection to seeing that report?
No, I don't.
Okay, so work. Yeah.
Okay, you can keep it, even if it's going to be more.
I'm done with that one. I just want to
I'll
get
just
it.
leave it here because she may ask some questions. Okay.
Okay. And then on the other one, on 1028,
Yes.
can you tell me what that one was about?
If I can review just for a
Yeah,
second,
please.
because I know there was a supplement to that one that, this was something I believe I'd spoken to Mrs. Schmidt over the phone regarding an incident in which she had gone to the Fuller School, and upon going into the parking lot, the other child had spotted her and made some sort of formation with one of his hands to make it appear as if it was a gun and as if he was shooting at her, and also that he basically reenacted or mimicked pulling a pin out of a grenade and throwing it at her.
And did you do anything after, just other than just put that in the report?
That was just documented.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask, so I can let Officer Zamor go after this, that I can authenticate some of these. One of them may be relevant for another testimony of a witness. It's about her daughter, so that, I just want to make sure that.
We asking about more police reports?
About, police report that I haven't like laid the foundation. I may not need it, but I can either ask him now or
The
later.
problem is, I mean, he's here, and if he leaves, if she wanted to ask him questions about that report, he won't be here, so.
Well, it's not a report that he's on, it's just all he would be doing is being a keeper of records to get it in.
I do have a question. Is it all right if I ask the officer?
Go ahead. Well, you'll get your opportunity, she has to finish first, and.
Well, I'd just like to ask that Officer Zamor leave all the records that you have here, and that you authenticate that you brought those records with you today,
Yes.
and that you are authorized by the department to bring these records to this hearing.
Correct.
And that's really, that's it. I'll make sure till later when there's a question. I'll have him just leave them up there, and if I need them, I'll come back to him.
Okay, I mean, does she have all this?
She has
same one you're
everyone.
talking about? Okay.
Yep, I just gave her everything, even though I haven't used them.
Okay.
I just want the records.
How many different reports are there?
There are
About.
7, 8.
Okay.
So I just go roll. I have 2 in evidence, and I may use one.
All right, why don't you just put them, so he's done?
I'm done.
Say, hang on a second, do you have any questions?
I do. So the initial initial complaint.
You can stand up, you can ask me.
I'm sorry. The initial complaint that went to you was on October 14th regarding.
Yeah, somewhere around the.
Yes, okay. And then subsequent to that, after there were the instances where Mrs. Schmidt had come to the playground and had shown up at different various points, and we're speaking about a child that has a history of post-traumatic stress disorder. Do you think that if a child was feeling threatened by an adult, that it would be very unusual for someone to make a motion to that proceed that where they wanted to protect themselves?
I object. The question is asking for a psychological evaluation.
That I won't accept.
You want to
This isn't qualified to mention.
Okay, all right.
You're excused, just leave them right there in case someone needs to refer to them.
Right.
Are they in any particular order, or just?
I had them in order of dates, but
Okay,
got
that's
construction
all right.
crew thrown out of it there.
All right. Who's your next witness?
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, I'll look at it. All right, thank you. Can you stand? Would you like to use your hand? Raise your hand. Here's where I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on pains and penalties of perjury? Yes. Okay. Can you state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Jennifer Schmidt, SCHMIDT.
Okay. Yeah, young child.
Yes.
And what grade is she?
Fourth grade.
Is she in the same, sorry, at the time the incidents we're discussing here, was she at the same school with the minor child in Princeton?
Yes.
And has your child had incidents with Ms. Collins' minor? Can you tell us about them?
She's been, there was an incident last year where he told her he had a gun. I went to the principal for that. And there were some incidences, a couple of incidences where we grabbed her by the wrists and not allowed her to play with her friends and things.
Speak up, please.
Yeah, because I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry.
Read that, please.
There were a few incidences after the gun incident where he would grab her wrists and tell her she couldn't play with anybody else.
Does your child have one of them on IEP?
Yes, she does.
And why does she have one?
She has several, she has learning disorders, she has an anxiety element that was added recently.
Anxiety?
Yes. And she has communications
May I approach that asking you something? Does her IEP have any specific social components?
Yes, it does.
Can you read from the social component?
The first one says, given direct modeling opportunities to practice and ability to utilize social thinking.
Again, I'm sitting right here, but I'm having trouble
I'm
hearing.
sorry. She'll utilize social thinking. The first benchmark on there was Annabelle will initiate play with at least 2 peers during recess for up to 3 times a week by December of 14.
So, what did that mean to you?
What did that mean to me?
Yeah.
That she needed more encouragement to play with her peers.
Was she having issues in the fall of 2014?
What's her issues?
Was she having social issues?
Yeah.
And what brought about those issues?
She was under a lot of anxiety from things that she had witnessed in school and the harassment she had been receiving by Gavin.
Did you, it's right there. Were you concerned about her well-being at school?
Absolutely.
And what did you do because of this?
I spoke with Mrs. Hartshorn quite a few times about it.
Can you explain to the board who Mrs. Hartshorn is?
She's the principal. I spoke with her quite a few times, and I started coming to the school to enjoy lunch with my daughter or observe her on the playground and make her feel safe.
Is there anything in the handbook for the school that allows for you to come and have lunch with your child?
Yes, it welcomes the parents to have lunch or breakfast at the children.
Okay. So did you, so this is the Fuller School Book Handbook for 2012-2013, can you read that line right there?
Parents are invited to join their child for breakfast or lunch.
And so did you go to the school for lunch?
Yes.
And how many times did you go?
I actually had lunch with her once at the school, this year.
Okay. And when you went to have lunch, what was the purpose of that?
She wasn't feeling safe, she wanted me there, she requested my presence.
Okay. And there were discussions that you were there on October 15th. Were you at the school on October 15th?
Yes.
And what were you doing there on October 15th?
I came to recess that day. It was the day after we had contacted the police department, and my daughter was especially fearful of retaliation.
Can you tell us what happened on October 14th?
My daughter had been playing outside the backyard at the time, and I was in my living room, right in front of the windows. I heard my daughter's name being screamed from across the street. I looked up and I saw Gavin riding his bike by.
And what did you do?
I immediately stopped what I was doing. I went and got my daughter, brought her inside from the backyard, and we decided, I called my husband, we decided that it'd be best if I went to the police station, and that's what we did.
Was that the report that Officer Draymore was talking about a couple minutes ago? Did you go back to the school after October 15th?
Yes.
When did you go?
On quite a few occasions, I would go and try to go into it during the recess. That's when my daughter was most afraid. That's when the kids have the most ability to run around and not be supervised at times.
Did your daughter observe the incident on January 29, 2014?
Yes.
And did she understand, did she ever express any concerns after that incident about Gavin?
Yes, she was having a lot of nightmares, a lot of anxiety.
Okay. And so when you went on, after October 15th and those days, you were there for your daughter?
Yes.
Did you happen to see Gavin?
I heard him talking. I think he was on the slide at one point, but I was more focused on my daughter.
Were you at the school on November 25th? Was there for a school assembly?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me where you were before the school assembly started?
Before the assembly started, I was gathered with a few parents that were there for the same reason in the hallway. We were waiting to be directed into the auditorium.
And did you go into the auditorium?
Yes, we did.
And when you went to the auditorium, were the children in the auditorium?
Not yet.
Okay. So where did you sit?
They had some benches set up for the parents to sit on, and I sat on one of the benches with a couple of the other parents.
Did you intend to sit near Ms. Talon's board?
No.
Did you see Ms. Talon's board?
I think they weren't in the room yet.
When they came in, did you notice that he was seated somewhere near you?
I didn't notice him until there was some noise happening over in the corner, and I looked to see what it was, and I saw him at that point.
So you, any testimony that would say that you purposely went near, you were there already?
Yeah, I was.
On November 28th, on November 3rd, were you in Hannaford's grocery store?
Yes.
Did you follow Gavin Trombley into Hannaford?
No.
Were you in Hannaford?
Yes.
What were you doing?
Shopping.
And what occurred?
I came down one aisle right in front of the service desk, about to turn up the next aisle, and I came face to face with the boy, probably about 5 or 6 feet away from him. I stopped for a minute and thought it would be better for me to go to the other side. I turned around and
Did you stretch your arms out at him?
no.
Did you say any vulgarities to him?
No.
Did you say anything?
No.
Did you have a phone?
I had my phone in one hand and I was pushing my carriage with the other.
Okay. What happened after you turned out?
After I walked away,
Yeah.
I went about doing my grocery shopping for a little bit. I came back around from basically the frozen aisle. Somebody brushed by me. I said, "Excuse me." I looked and saw Miss Talon. She stopped in front of me. She looked very angry. She just said, "Yeah," as I said, excuse me, and I asked her, did she need to talk about something? And she turned and walked away, and I invited her at that point if she ever wanted to discuss anything, that I was available.
Did you talk to anyone else about that incident at that time?
I ran into a friend in the store shortly after that.
And did you express what had just happened?
Yeah.
On November 28th, which is sometime around Thanksgiving, did you go up to 190 River Street?
No.
Did you walk anywhere near 190 River Street?
No.
When Ms. Talon said she came out and she didn't see you, was that because, were you anywhere near there?
I wasn't.
Were you around that weekend?
I was around the house that weekend. I was, at the time, I was having lunch with my daughter at the house.
On December 1st, did you stop your Volvo at any time near near Ms. Talon's board?
No.
Okay. Have you ever had direct conversation with Ms. Talon's board?
No.
Did you carry a knife with you?
No.
Do you have a knife ever?
No.
Did you ever get asked by the police for anything about criminal threatening or harassment or anything? Were you concerned why did you call the police on October 28th after you were at the school?
I had come to the school, parked in the parking lot, which is in the back by the playground. I was getting my things ready to get out of the car so I could walk up to the school and sign in, and heard yelling. I looked up and saw the boy running towards my car. He was pretending to shoot at my car. He was pretending to throw a grenade and make my car blow up, and then he flipped me off.
Did you report that incident to the school?
Yes.
Did you also report that incident to police?
Yes.
And why did you do that?
Because it was following a pattern of behavior.
Did you do anything bad?
No, I just walked past him and went to school.
Have you had any other direct conversations with Ms. Talon?
No.
Do you have any criminal history whatsoever?
No.
Have you ever, with the exception of business, been to court for a restraining order or anything like that? But is your daughter aware of other incidents that Ms. Talon Ward has done to other children in the same grade?
Yes.
How does she know those things?
Some of her friends and children have observed them themselves.
Have any of her friends left the school?
Yes.
Like, has she still kept contact with them?
Yes.
Is your daughter also undergoing therapy?
Yes.
Okay. And does anxiety from things like this do incidents like the ones that she once saw and experienced yourself, do those cause additional anxiety?
Yes.
And as a parent, what do you want to do to solve that problem?
I want to make her feel safe, and I want to check on her and make sure that her environment is secure.
Anything else you want to say?
I'm not gonna let this. Do you have any question for her?
No. Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions for Ms. Schmidt?
I do. When you were in Hannaford, do you recall you shouting at me from the cash registers being very upset with me, saying, do you want to talk? Do you want to talk? I'm here to talk.
Yes, I did
recall
all
that.
that
Okay.
conversation.
Were you aware that when you were standing
The question
outside?
was, were you shouting these words, or were you speaking in the tone you speak now, or something else?
I had to speak up because she had walked away.
Were you aware that when you walked out of the school, in the front of the school to pick up your child, or wherever you were inside the school near Gavin, that you were causing him emotional duress and the feeling of not being safe around an adult?
That was my concern when I was at school. My concern was for my daughter.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you for stepping down.
Yes, Your Honor, may I approach the bench? I don't know if that time to listen to me make a statement.
Any objections? Mr. Wrigley is the attorney for the school district. I have no idea what he's about to say, is it?
My name is John Wrigley. I am attorney for the school district. My only concern here is the records. Emily Hartshorn was subpoenaed.
Is that who this is?
Yes.
Whatever evidence she has will be valuable evidence, I'm sure, to the court. I would like the opportunity to object if any of the records are being requested.
I don't think I'm gonna need them, I'm just gonna
On
have.
confidentiality and other?
Yes.
Are you going to inquire about any?
I'm gonna inquire about incidents, and I'm gonna, all the things we're gonna talk about, and my client's reason for being there. If there's any objection, I have no problem if he wants to raise it. I'm not asking for any records to be produced, but I'm asking about incidents.
But what if her testimony is based on her recollection of what's in the record? Is that?
I'd like to cross that bridge when we get there,
Okay.
if we get there, but
I'm trying to find out from you.
I'm sorry?
I'm trying to find out from you. Do you anticipate, even if you're not going to ask for a record, you can ask for her to convey otherwise confidential information?
Well, everything that's, I'm only asking about things that's already been discussed in open court. There's nothing else there's nothing.
But hasn't been objected to up to this point.
True. I mean, I've already indicated to Attorney Wrigley what I'm going to ask. So if I have no problems if he wants to raise an objection. I don't anticipate her bringing out any records, but I will ask her about the things we've already discussed. And if he objects, we'll deal with it. But I don't have any problem.
Do you want to step inside here, just in case, or
where are you?
wherever you're comfortable, it's fine with me.
I'm here.
Okay, so my name is Danny. I'm sorry. Do you swear to tell the truth? You swear to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on anything else is perjury. Okay. Can you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Emily Hartshorn, Hartshorne.
And what is your job?
I'm the Fuller School Principal.
Okay, are you familiar with both my client and Ms. Dallin?
Yes, I am.
Are you familiar with their children?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you aware of my clients going to the school and starting in October?
Yes, I am.
Is it your understanding that she went there for her daughter?
Yes, it is.
And did she at any time go looking for Gavin? Sorry, Ms. Downs' board.
Not that I know of.
Okay. And were you aware when she was there at the school?
So there were some days that I was not aware when she was in the parking lot because I couldn't see that she was down there. But when the other times when she was on the playground and in the school, yes.
And what was she doing when she was on the playground and in the school?
The October 15th time that she was on the playground, she was sitting on a bench. And the time when she came to eat lunch with her daughter, I'm not remembering the exact date, but she was eating lunch with her daughter in the lunchroom.
Okay. Did she have a legitimate purpose to be there?
Mrs. Schmidt told me that she was there for her daughter.
Do you have any reason to believe she was there for any other reason?
No.
Is it true to say that there's been a lot of conflict at the school in the now 4th grade with different children?
This has been a very sensitive issue, and I think that, it's been very complex, yes.
And so there was an incident in January 29th of 2014, that my client's child could have witnessed?
Yes,
Okay. And that Ms. Talon's word was involved in?
yes.
And is it safe to say that the children talk amongst themselves when one of them gets threatened?
That can happen. I don't know specific conversations that happen.
But it's safe to say that Ms. Schmidt's child could be concerned for her well-being at school.
I would say that I would say that that's not true. I mean, she may feel that concern, but the actual threat, I think, was not real.
Yeah, I was getting to the point where
Her feeling of concern is valid.
and that she could have asked her mother to come to school.
Yes.
That's all I know.
Okay, you have a question, Ms.
I do. Do you, in terms of perceptions of children and how they view other children's behaviors, would you say that a child such as Gavin, who has a diagnosis of PTSD, may feel a high level of threat when a parent continues to make her presence known in proximity of him when he knows that the parent's upset with him and saying that? Would that be a normal reaction for a child like Gavin?
Your Honor,
Or another adult?
I object to this testimony that asking for a clinical diagnosis of PTSD. I understand she didn't answer the principal, but
I'm not asking for a diagnosis.
You can answer based on our experience as a
Yeah.
principal and
Yes.
Yes.
dealing with children, but that's
That's
Correct.
right.
it's got value in that context and not outside.
That's right, I just didn't want it to be, you know.
That is-
a medical question.
Do you understand the question?
I think I do.
That is what I'm asking. Gavin has a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress. I'm not asking Emily to diagnose Gavin. I'm asking Emily's her experience with Gavin, how he perceives adults in situations that could be, from his perspective, threatening.
I
view an adult.
I do know that Mr. Schmidt's presence at Fuller School made Gavin very tense and anxious. Is that answer your question?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Question, but there's nothing that she did specifically towards Gavin ever, that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just her presence?
Her presence.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you, that's it. So I'll try and be released.
Yes, we're all set. Thank you.
Your lawyer? We can see the reasons to
That's okay with you? Thank you.
Most, and there's Mr. Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on pains and penalties of perjury. All right, have a seat. Will you state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Christy Wilkins, I need my last name spelled right, Wilkins.
And how do you know my client?
I've been friends with Jen for a while now, and she actually worked with my company for a while as well.
Do you remember running into Jen Schmidt on November 3rd in Hannaford?
I do.
Can you tell me what was said when you ran into her?
Well, I bumped into her, and she kind of looked a little upset, and I said, is everything okay? And she said that she had told me the exact events of what had happened, that she had seen him, and that, you know, she immediately just went, nope, I'm going to go the other direction. I'm just going to avoid this situation, and walked away. She had said that her grandmother had brushed past her, and she said, if there's ever a time we need to talk, just tell me. I'm here all the time. Just tell me when you're ready to talk. And I just tried to say, you know, I really hope this gets better. And then she had asked about, we talked a little bit about my dad passing, and then just gave her a hug, and we moved forward and said we'd catch up soon.
Did she say that she had threatened the child?
No.
Did she say she stretched out her hand to the child? No further questions, Your Honor?
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Raise your hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on pains and penalties of perjury. Can you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Alicia Zilski, Z-I-L-S-K-E.
How are you familiar with my client?
Our girls have been in school, or were in school together at Fuller from kindergarten until December of this year.
Are you aware, before coming here today, of issues regarding Mr. Strangler?
Yes, Jen and I are friends, and the girls play together, and we work to keep them in contact since the schooling situation has changed.
I'm sorry, did you say that?
I said we have worked at keeping the girls together since the schooling situation for both girls has changed.
Oh, okay, sorry. Have you been with Ms. Schmidt on any occasions and seen her threaten any children?
No.
Have you ever seen her behavior around Ms. Talon Ward?
No.
Are you familiar with Ms. Talon Ward?
I know of him. I didn't until recently even know his last name.
And how are you familiar with him?
There's been sort of an ongoing back and forth for quite some time between the two kids. I think they don't get along, and we've sort of just advised a polite avoidance.
When you say between the children, which children are you talking about?
Mrs. Talon's Ward and my daughter.
Okay. And there was testimony earlier that was your child threatened by Ms. Talon Ward?
Yes, on 2 occasions.
And were they reported to the school?
I learned of them from the school, and I didn't know anything about them prior to that.
Can you tell us what your child said?
The first time was in September of this year. I received a copy of the bullying report after the December incident, in which he threatened to come to her house and kill her. This was said in front of multiple children in a transition period. The kids were going into the back into school at the end of recess. I had several parents ask me how things were going and how it was, if everything was all right. And so that was the first incident. And then the second was I received a call from Mrs. Hartshorn while I was at work saying that a police report had been filed and that Mrs. Talon's Ward had threatened to bring a knife to school and kill my daughter, and that they had, because it had been threatened to be followed through on the school grounds, had to be followed up with by the police.
I don't need, this has nothing to do with this case.
Well, it has to go, part of the issue, Your Honor, is that everything that...
Well, your client didn't testify that she was aware of anything about this situation here, so how fair does that?
Well, it has Ms. Talon...
There's no point in bringing up every incident involving this boy.
No, but Ms. Talon testified that her ward did not do this. And so that the child is telling the truth. And so I'm having, this is to go to the truthfulness of the testimony that we can't cross-examine.
Did not, the questions from earlier this afternoon?
Yeah, I asked her about this incident, and she said that...
Okay, go ahead.
So, did you get a chance to look at it? Okay, and so what occurred on the 4th according to the police report?
He approached 2 female classmates and began singing a song.
Oh, you don't have to bring it back.
He threatened to bring it to school and kill his daughter.
Okay. And this was heard by an adult?
No, it was reported immediately to an adult.
And they took it seriously enough to contact the police?
Yes, the following day, it was reported the following day, and it was investigated for the course of the day, and the police department was contacted. So that's the best of my knowledge.
Do you believe that occurred?
I do.
That's what we know.
you have any questions from Ms.
Oh, sorry, I'd like to get the police report entry. It's up, it's already.
Just put it on top of that.
No, it's already in that file.
It's in there? Okay.
Yeah, and I can go through and remove the ones that weren't
That's right.
needed to. That's it.
Any questions for this witness?
Were you aware that Gavin denied stating that?
No, I didn't, I wasn't, that's not really my concern, I'm sorry. I believe what my daughter has told me has been a pattern of behavior she's been experiencing since second grade, and that's what I have to go on.
Were you aware of the bullying that was taking place between the children on the playground?
I know that I have told my daughter since what happened last January to stay away from him, to do everything she could to get away from him. I told Mrs. Hartshorn that I needed assistance and active help in keeping them separated. I asked that they be kept separated and was told that that was not a reasonable request.
So do you believe that there's enough concerns among parents that they would need to take action into their own hands against a child in that situation?
I feel like I can't really speak to your concerns. I don't think that, do I feel like parents should take whatever actions they feel necessary? Yes.
Anything else?
Different.
Okay, you can be released here. Thank you. Anything else from the defendant? Okay.
I'd like to have a closing.
Okay. Go ahead.
Should go first or you want me to go?
You go first. You're the defense.
So I would just say that, Your Honor, I think that there's not enough evidence to find that my client participated in the course of conduct for stalking. Not a single incident has been found. My client had a legitimate purpose to be at the school because of the anxiety and concerns of her daughter, which was validated by the principal. When she was, these things all occur after she reports Ms. Talon's grandson to the police for his behaviors that are disturbing her daughter and disturbing her. She never once did anything at the school grounds that was already testified to by Ms. Hartshorn that was anyway a course of conduct aimed at Ms. Talon's ward. The incident in Hanford, was relayed immediately thereafter to a friend. Demonstrates.
That's a self-serving statement. I'm not going to take it into consideration one way or the other.
Well, but Your Honor, we have
The fact that she didn't say what happened doesn't mean that it didn't happen. She described it the way she wanted it described. That's not going to move the court one way or the other.
Say that something closer to the incident where Ms. Talon indicates that her grandson tells the truth, yet she went outside immediately after being reported on November 28th and didn't see my client and her daughter, who my client said she wasn't there. My client indicates she never stopped and talked to Ms. Talon's ward, and the incident on she's not stalking Ms. Talon's ward, she's grocery shopping in Hanford. That there's no evidence to show that my client had a course of conduct that would raise the level of the stalking order as required by 633.
Okay. In closing, anything you want to say?
Well, I feel like that there's been a lot of information that's come out here that corroborates, in my opinion, the reason that Mrs. Schmidt would make her presence known and cause a disturbance to Gavin Trombley and his, and also a detriment to his emotional well-being. So I think that given all of the information that has come out here, it's very clear that there are concerns that these adults have, and they feel like they need to prevent something from happening, protect their children, and in that event, they're causing Gavin a high level of anxiety and feeling unsafe because of these diagnosis.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take another advisement.
I'm just going to fix those for you to see the rules that were entered.
Okay. Everybody understands that the order is still in effect. If it's ultimately ruled in her favor, that's one thing. If it's not in her favor, then she'll be advised and she'll be subject to permanent notice.
Do you want any exhibit stickers? Do you want them?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Court is recess.
Thank you.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.